Entering the Mayo Experience.
Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience, presented by Underdog Fantasy. Support the show by using code MAYO at Underdog Fantasy and get a deposit bonus of up to $250. We're taking a break from football and a break from golf today to talk about my favorite non-sports thing on TV, The Challenge, Season 40, Battle of the Eras. We're going to break down the cast, do some power rankings, and if you're watching the video version of the show, I recommend that you go over to the Pat Mayo Experience audio feed on Spotify or Apple, which you can find down in the description, as the second part of this show will be a fantasy draft that I did with the folks from the Challenge Chronicles, as with the four of us just drafted fantasy teams with crazy points, like hookup points, winning points, a ton of it, but I don't have the video for it, just the audio, so it'll be on the Pat Mayo Experience audio feed after the conclusion of the show. So on the audio feed, this is part one. For the video, this is it. No person better to talk about this with than the person that I text about the challenge with as it goes on at Late Round QB, also from Underdog Fantasy, JJ Zachariason. It's time. Season 40.
I'm ready. Hopefully we get a better outing than what we saw in season 39.
But you liked All-Stars 4 except for the final.
I was cool with All-Stars 4. Yeah. I mean, like, obviously it comes with, the territory that we're dealing with folks that are more out of shape and not necessarily in their peak condition to go on the challenge. But All-Stars 4 was fine. The finale, though, I still get tilted thinking about the fact that you enjoyed the finale, that you were okay with the finale.
I'm just saying, it's like Thursday Night Football during football season. It's the worst quality product that they can put on the field. I always tune in to watch it. So obviously I like it. I like football, so I watch it. Even if it sucks, I like the challenge. So even if something sucks in it, it's still better than what I perceive to be 95% of TV.
It's fair. It's fair. But objectively, you have to admit that final was not the best.
It wasn't the best final. No, I completely agree with you. But
would you? I would say it was like a fifth percentile final.
No, there's been some bad finals over the past 5 years.
Is this not up there?
It's up there, but it's like on par like All Stars 2, where they just randomly declared a winner. It seemed.
Yeah, that's fair. No, but like the thing that annoyed me most was that there was not an ounce of anything physical throughout that entire, even the last leg didn't seem like it was like that. I mean, even Laurel evidently had the like torn meniscus or something throughout that entire last leg. It was just very tilting to watch because we were watching it to see. It's a similar, like, we watch sports to see people do these like crazy physical feats and whatnot. And I've heard an interview from Leroy, who was like how he trained really, really hard and it like didn't even matter on the season for the most part. I don't know, man. I wanted to see at least a little bit of it, a little bit more of a cardio element to it.
So we're doing a spoiler-free show in terms of I don't know who wins, I don't know who advances, I just know what the teams are, I have a slight idea of the format, and I've seen some people on Instagram hooking up after the conclusion of filming. So I think that's all fair game if it's very public on Instagram. So for this cast, there's 40 people. 4 teams of 10. Will it stay in teams the whole time? Probably not. They love changing the format like 8 times throughout the course of the season. But to start, there's going to be Era 1, Era 2, Era 3, and Era 4. 5 men, 5 women on each team. So Era 1 is comprised of seasons 1 to 9, or 1 to 10, sorry. If that's when you debuted, Era 2, seasons 11 to 20, and so forth, because we're into season 40 at this point. So off the hop, do you have any of the teams that stick out to you as like, oh, that's a real contender?
I think they did a pretty good job overall of balancing things, but I do think that Era 2, the Bananas team, is really weak. The guys it's like the biggest contrast of guys and girls weakness. Like the girls are the strongest, I think, of any of the era, and the guys are by far, I think, the weakest. I actually am kind of intrigued by Era 4. I wouldn't be surprised if that era has the most success, not just because of the youth. I think that you like look at it. I probably, if I were to kind of power rank them, I might say Era 4 is like my 1A and Era 3 would be my 1B, and then I'd go Era 1 and then Era 2. That would be my power ranking groupings. But I'm always curious, obviously, about like the political dynamic and if the freshness of like the Olivia drama, for instance, is going to impact things on Era 4, whereas the folks on Era 1 have bigger egos, maybe, or I mean Era 2 definitely, but Era 1, but a lot of their stuff happened like a decade ago, and will that even matter at this point? But yeah, I mean, I think that's the way that I would power rank things right now.
Yeah, I think Era 3 is the best, then Era 4. I'd still take Era 2 over Era 1 just because as bad as the guys are on Era 2, the other four with bananas, it's not as bad as the female side in Era 1, which has one awesome person, one pretty good person, and three absolute duds.
That's very, very fair. Yeah, the girls in Era 1 are pretty rough.
Well, let's get to it. Era 1, the female side is Anissa, Jody, Katie Cooley, Tina, and Rachel Robinson, who that was my one big thing about All-Stars 4 was we got this Cara, Rachel elimination, and it was the stupidest elimination ever.
That's what I'm saying. That's how it felt like the whole season. I just wanted something legitimately physical. I mean, how awesome would it have been to see Cara and Rachel like go at it in something like crazy? Instead, they're throwing darts or whatever, or hatchet? What was it again? Was it the?
I think it was Ninja Stars.
Ninja Stars, that's what it was. Sorry, Ninja Stars aren't always top of mind whenever I'm thinking about, it's like such a classic, just random carnival-esque game. But yeah, I mean, it just wasn't very, didn't really have it.
So the guys in Era 1, you got Brad, CT, Darrell, Derek Kaczynski, and Mark Long. So one of the things that I read in the Entertainment Weekly preview to the season is that the season is going to start with something called the Eras Invitational, where one guy and one girl from each team are going to get purged with something off the top. So everyone's going to lose two players right away. And now I don't know exactly how that works, if it's a race, if it's an elimination. If you come in last, you get to dig yourself out of a hole through an elimination. I don't know. But I think you need to look at these teams as teams of 8 and minus the two worst people on each team, and then take a look at the teams, which I do think helps Era 1.
Yeah, probably. Although, look, the guys are not bad, obviously, in Era 1. Brad had a really bad outing in All-Stars. He's kind of a wild card. But I feel like the guys are fairly strong. You never know. It looks like CT is not peak athlete CT for this season, so that could go either way as well. But somehow he still can get it done from a cardio perspective, despite having the extra pounds. But yeah, I mean, like the guys are still pretty strong in Era 1. But I did see that too. That does seem like I wouldn't be surprised if it's just an elimination. They're done, and we're like whoever gets bottom 2 in each is just off the show.
I don't know if they can do that because then you run the risk of losing CT or Bananas or Cara, Laurel, whoever it might be. I would think that if they did come last and get purged, that they would throw them some sort of lifeline to make sure that they're still on the show.
Yeah, I thought that too. There's just so many people in this cast. If like that, they got to figure out. There's going to be events like that. Maybe it'll be later in the season. But yeah, I mean that's a good point.
So Era 2 is the Bananas team. So it's Johnny Bananas, Brandon Nelson, Derek Chavez, Nehemiah, and Ryan Kehoe. So we saw 3 of them on All-Stars 4. And Derek Chavez was shockingly the best one. Didn't realize he was like a state track runner in California. So that really worked out well for him. And then Nehemiah, who was on, I think, the first 3 seasons of All-Stars and was actually pretty good. But like you said, the weakest male side, but by far the strongest female side. There's no bad females on this team. It's Cara, it's Emily Schramm, and Laurel. Aviv, who's 1 for 1 in championships, and following her on Instagram is absolutely jacked at this point. And Kellyanne, who doesn't love Kellyanne?
Yeah, Kellyanne's great. It's a stacked girls team. But yeah, I mean, like Derek definitely surprised in the last season. I don't know how well it's going to translate to a flagship show and not, All-Stars, where again, the competition was a little bit weaker. The games were a little bit weaker. But even still, I mean, we got to give him props. Like he did a really, really good job. And he, got eliminated in a stupid game in the final. I mean, I was rooting for him. I wish that he could have done something bigger in the final in All-Stars.
This just feels like Bananas rolls here. Like, he's by far the safest guy on his team.
Yeah.
The girls aren't going to vote him out because he's the best one. And he just has connections with all of the eras that it's unlikely that he would get voted in unless they specifically said, like, hey, we're getting rid of bananas.
Yeah, and I don't know how much beef he necessarily has, like from a guy's perspective on the team. I know that he and Kara have not had the best communication of late, at least. But like I don't see like there being a big threat for him, which isn't shocking. They obviously, from like a production standpoint, they would obviously want him to stick around. But I think you're right. Like I think that he could easily go far strictly because of that.
So we got this Cara Laurel drama that we saw from All Stars 4. But then you inject Emily Schramm back into it, who, I don't know, if we were to power rank like the 5 best females all time on the show, she would be in it. But she hasn't been on the show in 10 years, maybe?
Yeah. I mean, she still looks like she's in shape. I'm not going to count her out, clearly. I mean, she's a monster. But yeah, I mean, they got 3, like you said, 3 of the top 5 arguably girls ever. Aviv, who knows? But we saw her, years ago, dominate in her season. So I mean, the girls look very, very strong. The Cara Laurel dynamic will be interesting. I have a feeling that they'll be able to squash things because it did seem like a lot of the sort of the badness to their relationship was very much like game driven and show driven, and they're just very up and down. But I think there's at least some respect for one another. I mean, look at the way that they at least like moderately embraced at the end of All Stars, whenever Laurel ended up winning. So I'm not like overly concerned about what that drama might do.
Who is the second best guy on this team?
I mean, is it Derek? I'd say between Derek and Nehemiah, but I'd probably, I mean, just given the way that Derek performed last season, I think you got to give the nod to Derek.
Yeah, I think that he does challenge things well, if that makes any sense. Like, being able to run better than anyone else on this team is such a huge advantage.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and Nehemiah has always been just like an above average type player for the most part. I mean, he showed up in All-Star, like he's been decent enough in All-Stars when he's been on the cast. But I mean, I think recency bias slash, what we just kind of learned with Derek. I mean, he seems like he can, he seems like you said, like he can do challengey things better than I think a lot of us realized.
Yeah, anything with power, and he's going to be absolutely screwed. And then Nehemiah would kind of take him out in that regard. But like, you also have Ryan Keough on the team, who's like the worst version of Derek.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, Ryan is fun, and he's fun. Like I really like his confessionals and like in All Stars and stuff. He's always just kind of like sitting back and just like watching the drama unfold and just like, not inserting himself. But yeah, I mean, I don't think like as a challenger he's much of a threat. Good dude though, seemingly.
It's just they're missing so many names that they could have had for men, and not even like the obvious ones. Like, obviously Evan and Kenny are never coming back, but this is where Wes needs to be.
Yeah, I feel like that would not only complete the cast of the season, but it would really I mean, to be fair though, if Wes were on this team, I think that might tip it to this team being the best team. If you replace Wes with any of the guys, right, aside from Johnny, assuming Bananas would still be there, I feel like all of a sudden it would tip the scales because the females are just so strong, and just having Wes and Bananas, who, obviously they like to play out their hate for each other on social media as a joke at this point, but they would likely work pretty well together. And then you get rid of one of the weaker guys. It would probably make era 2 the best era if he were there, but alas, we will not get the Ginger. He's
going to be on Traitors, apparently, season 3. And House of Villains.
Yeah, I mean, he's good for reality TV, but I want to see. I feel like the way he went out, like it wasn't on the flagship show. Like it wasn't the way that we wanted. It felt like, at least Leroy, when he went out before he obviously came back, it was in a final. He gave it his all. He got second place in that final. It felt like it was a good season for him. It was solid. Sure, he didn't get the W, but Leroy's also not the same kind of like needs to be a champion kind of player as Wes has been historically. The way that Wes went out just felt like it felt like like Peyton Manning not winning the Super Bowl his final year, and the way that he just like performed that final season where he was just like clearly not the same. It just kind of felt that way with Wes.
I completely agree. I think we'll see him back eventually if this show stays on the air and he can find the time to do it when he's not driving his monster truck or running his 5,000 businesses. And I think he just became a dad as well. So a lot going on with Wes at the moment. Passion, drive, patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Supercharger, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want. It's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Everyone who tunes into the Pat Mayo Experience knows from time to time I like to talk to you about some health supplements that I end up taking, and I've been doing Timeline's MitoPure now for about a month. Feel great? And I think you can too. Take 2 soft gels a day for 2 months, and you can see significant improvements in your cellular energy, your muscle strength, and your endurance. That was the big thing. I've been golfing more this summer and lifting less. Yet when I go back to the gym for my once a week, like max lift, I'm not really atrophying that much. I'm not losing a ton of muscle, which is absolutely fantastic news for me and my golf game, because if you work out too much, then you get too sore, you get too stiff, you need to retain that flexibility. I'm retaining my muscle mass at the same time, although I'm not working out as much, and it comes in 2 product designs to fit your needs. They're berry powder, which is great to mix into your breakfast, yogurt, or daily smoothie. That's how I've been doing it. I've been eating some strawberries, raspberries, blackberries with a little bit of yogurt, a little bit of protein powder, then boom, Timeline's MitoPure right on top of that. Or they have soft gels for the days where you're just on the run and wanted something convenient to grab and go. So, Timeline is offering 10% off your first order of MitoPure right now. So go to timeline.com/Mayo to get that 10% off. All right? Era 3, you got Amanda, your neighbor, Avery, who's now just back in the challenge world, John A., Naya, and Tori. Like, once you get rid of Amanda and you have Tori and John A. on this team, this team is just so balanced. Because you take a look at the guys, Leroy, Tony, Corey, Devin, and then you have Jordan as like your captain.
Yeah. It's a really, really strong team. And looking at it too, it might be, Amanda's going to cause something. Like something will stem from Amanda, I'm sure, but it's a pretty low drama team. I know that like the folks like Devin will stir things up, but like a lot of these people are already aligned. Like Tori and Jordan squash their stuff. Jordan's cool with Devin now. Corey's just Corey. Like Corey won't cause that much drama unless within this team at least. Leroy's Leroy. He'll be cool with Naya, and Tony seems like he's kind of turned the corner as well, just with his life. So I feel like if they can keep Amanda in check, and if these teams are teams for an extended period of time, I do think that's also in their favor. So, going back to my power rankings at the beginning, maybe I'll put them as the 1A instead of Era 4 as the 1A.
Well, I just think about it. If you lose your 2 worst players, like your 2 worst players get purged out to begin with. So Amanda's just gone, probably. Her or Avery, I'm guessing. Who do you think the guy from this team that gets purged is? Because I have a feeling it's either Tony or Leroy.
Yeah, I have a feeling it might be like Leroy did not have a good All-Star season, despite getting to the final and not. He didn't know how to drink the liquid. We keep going back to this final. It's so bad. I understand that he got to the final and stuff, but he had a pretty rough season. I think you're probably right. Maybe Tony put him up there, but I feel good about Devin and Jordan for sure. But I think. I would not be surprised if it ended up being Leroy.
Okay, then you got Era 4, which is a weird mix of like people we've just kind of met over the past 4 years. You got Horacio, Josh, Kyland, Pauly, and Theo. It's a very good men's side in terms of athleticism minus Josh. And then you got Jenny, who hasn't been seen since she beat everybody on Total Madness. Casey, Michelle, Nerese coming off a great year. And then Olivia, who tried to like screw everyone over. But good drama on the Olivia side. I just think that if you cut some of the fat from this team, it's a very strong athletic team.
I agree. Like, I don't think Olivia is that strong. I've been a critic of like Michelle's as well, but I think that she's an okay enough competitor. And then there's Josh, who's Josh, but like Horacio and Jenny and Casey, and obviously Nerese after what she did last season. Polly is a solid, and this is a very, very strong squad. It's just they don't have the same name recognition because they haven't been around that much, and a lot of them. Like Kylan especially. I think Kylan's the one who really, really emerged last season, as someone who's a beast. But I'm very, that's why I said at the beginning, like I think Era 4 is very, very strong, and they don't necessarily have they definitely don't have the same history as the other folks do that might get in the way. That might be a huge detriment, but also might end up being, a huge favor, like something that really, really favors them. Maybe if that purge happens early and Olivia's the one, which look at the girls, I don't think that would be out of the question. That could really, really help this team.
I worry for Horacio here because he is the very clear target, I think, of everyone. Like it probably should be Theo because Theo almost made the Olympics at one point, but everyone kind of forgets about that. And just in terms of challenge, you see Horacio. He beat Jordan in an elimination. He's just looked great ever since he's been on the show. I just think he's target number one for all the vets.
Yeah, I'm assuming this is going to be other teams voting in certain players from other eras and not an internal thing. Which, maybe there's a dynamic of a little bit of both, but if that would be the case, then yeah, Horacio's done for. But if it's the opposite, then he's totally fine because I think everyone would support him, even Olivia to some degree, because I think there is a little bit of regret and remorse coming from her, which might help the Nerese and Horacio help their cases throughout the season.
So I'm guessing it stays in teams, and my wager would be halfway through the season, it goes to either individuals or pairs or something like that. That makes sense, right?
Yeah. It's how we've seen it, man. That's how they do it. I could also see it be a scenario where the teams stay put and then they start to trade individual players at times when they win or lose. They get to choose if they want to go to a different era and stuff like that. But I at least hope that they keep it this way for the first like half of the season, because I think it's a really fun dynamic because you get to see sort of how these teams would think and interact internally, coming up together. I think that's just an interesting dynamic that we just haven't seen in a while.
So if we think there's going to be one guy winner and one woman winner, who would you set as the favorite for the women?
Oh man. I think the best competitor is Jenny of all the women. I think the best probably I would say, man, it's tough. My reasoning for not going all in on like a Laurel or Kara is because the competition within Era 2 could be really strong. Whereas I think, obviously there's Casey, like it's a strong women's field within Era 4, but I'd say Casey's the biggest threat to someone like Jenny. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Jenny with the girls. I guess that's not really a limb because she just freaking destroyed the last time we saw her. And then I think you got to put your, from like an odds standpoint, Bananas up there just because of, again, the competition that he has within his own team. And then I'm always going to say that Jordan has a chance because the dude's just a monster.
Yeah, I think Jordan's the favorite for the guys. Then it would probably be Bananas. Then I have no idea. But that's probably your 1 and 2. Then it's like, yeah, can CT do anything? Can Darrell do anything? Can Horacio do anything? Theo, I think, would be a nice outside shot just because he'd be hard to beat in anything. But for the women, I think Tori's the favorite.
Oh, that's a good pick. Yeah, that's a good pick.
Or Rachel.
Do you think Rachel?
Yeah, Rachel looked great on All-Stars, and then she got eliminated in like a janky elimination. Like if it was a head.
Well, I guess the Rachel, I guess the Rachel logic would be the same logic that I used with Jenny, right? Where where the competition within her team might be easy to emerge if that's like a dynamic to all of this. Because really Jody that she would have to worry about. She even has weaker competition than what Jenny would have to deal with. And with Tori, I mean, yes, it's Tori. She's obviously gonna do well most seasons at this point. She has a good political game and she's just a beast.
Yeah, and she's pretty insulated on this team. Like when you look at it, you kind of mentioned like everyone's cool with everyone. We know that Jordan and Tori will work together. But I think the sneaky thing here is like Avery and Naya are both on this cast, and they're all from Jordan's season of The Real World. So that's like just a built-in alliance. And if you can have half the votes on your team, I feel like that's going to be, it has to be a huge advantage.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I will give that to you. We're gonna put Tori as the 1-on-1 for the girls now.
Who do you think disappoints here? Because I think CT doesn't do anything.
I'm fearful of CT. I'm fearful of Leroy because of how he performed last season. I think Horacio is going to be a threat, so he's probably going to get thrown in a lot because it's just how it works every single season because his political game is pretty trash. Those would probably be the guys, at least, that I would be nervous for. I think Nerys might be in a little trouble, too, with the connection to Horacio / how she performed last season / she doesn't have much of a filter, which we all love about her, but that could get her into trouble as well. So Nerys would be one. I'd call them out in particular. I think people are always going to go after, like a Kara or maybe not a Laurel as much, but it just depends on what the dynamic looks like from an elimination standpoint. I think people are definitely going to be, less intimidated by a Nerys than they are going to be from like a Laurel or Kara.
I think Casey's in some trouble here because all of her friends just aren't on this season outside of Josh, who that's not really helping you.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, you don't have Fessy in here either. Like the big brother. I mean, I guess what's her relationship with Polly? Because Polly's a big brother dude. Yeah.
I feel like no one has a relationship with Polly besides Kara.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, he's definitely helped his image though over the last few years. Like he's had a lot of just like self-reflection and he's just more aware of what's going on, all of that, which is great. So, hopefully that doesn't make him look as bad, but yeah, I mean, she has some big brother love on that team, but they're not strong enough. And yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
What if we got rid of Polly or Josh and put in Turbo for this team?
I mean, it would end up being a disaster in one way or another. But they'd be stronger from an elimination standpoint. I do you like, is Turbo ever coming back to this show?
I think he's on All Stars 5.
No way.
I think he is. I didn't look at the whole cast, but I thought I saw his name on it.
Oh my gosh, if he's on, but that's the thing, dude. That would be rough because people go on All Stars to kind of chill and have a vacation out of it a little bit, and he will not allow that to happen.
Yeah, he'll be very unpopular like he always is in the house.
Yeah, exactly. All
right, so like anticipation level for this season, is it 10 out of 10?
I think it's got to be. I think it'd be an 11 if they somehow got Wes out of retirement and did what we said earlier. But yeah, man, I mean, this has got to be the best well-rounded cast that we have ever seen from the show. And, I was thinking about, season 39 and, how they didn't have any veterans on the show and they did what they did. I think that there were a couple reasons for that. They obviously wanted to get, new blood, get folks to emerge a little bit and, become big pieces of the show, which I think the big winners like Horacio is already, a big part of it and a big part of things, just given how he had performed his rookie season. But like, I think Nerys and Kylan really emerged as like the next wave or part of the next wave. So it was a win from that perspective. But I also think it might end up being a win if they didn't lose enough in season 39, like the show itself. I think it could be a big win because you're going to see such a different dynamic and just such a better show hypothetically here that we're going to like it even more because it's just not season 39.
Felt like they budgeted out both seasons and we're like, we're going to allocate 95% of our budget to season 40 and we'll just get scrubs for 39.
Yeah, look, I didn't mind the concept of 39 that much. I just thought that like the eliminations were kind of weak. Like it wasn't like, it was cool to see other people be able to control the game. And, like we see Jay take on a role who everyone, he became the villain. It was like, it was good for television from that perspective. But again, it goes back to like, I didn't think the eliminations were that strong. Like if you're gonna bring back, like a Laurel or a Kara or whoever, like make it make it actually not a 50-50 game. Like make it an underdog story for one of these people to go in against one of these monsters. Make it really, really difficult for them to do it, because that to me would be the point. You have to beat these people in something that they're good at, or like categorize them in a certain way. Like CT is a strength guy, so do something related to strength, like for the elimination. They just didn't do that, right? It was just all puzzles, and it was all the same week in and week out. I think that's where they really screwed up. It wasn't even necessarily the casting. The casting, though, it wasn't like amazing because we didn't have any of our favorites. But again, I do think because that season was as weak as it was, All Stars wasn't very strong. I mean, if they fall flat with this cast too, that's really bad news. But I think it's going to be a hit.
Yeah, and because Paramount is getting bought, which like owns MTV, I have no idea how long the show's going to be around for now. That's tough.
I know nothing about that side, but yeah, I mean, I feel like they're gonna have to, like, if that's the angle, then they're gonna have to go out with a bang.
I'm looking forward to it. All right, that's the challenge. Season 40. Now we can kick back and watch it.
Yeah, man, I'm very, very excited, and I'm sure I'll be destroying your text messages throughout the season.
Yeah, I'll try to watch it in real time. I always like to pause it for 20 minutes or so I can fire through the commercials.
Yeah, I feel you.
That's some people don't watch till the next day.
It depends on, like, when you got kids running around, you got their schedules you got to worry about. You never know when you can just sit down and watch it live. But I always try to, at least like the big shows, like when there's a big elimination or when it's the finale, I try to watch them as live as I possibly can.
All right, that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Follow JJ at Late Round QB. And if people want to get some fantasy football in their life, JJ, where should they be going for you?
Check me out, lateround.com. I got a draft guide that's out there. If any of you guys love some fantasy football, you can get that, $24.99. Check it out, lateround.com.
And if you really want to get invested in fantasy football this year, code Mayo at Underdog Fantasy will get you a deposit bonus of up to $250. If you're an audio listener, you'll be hearing more of me with the guys from the Challenge Chronicles in a minute. If you're a video watcher, that will do it for me. Sub to the audio podcast if you want more, but we'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!